Hello everyone. Welcome back to the What's Up Today show. Today we're diving into everything you need to know about voting in the United States, including how the voting process works, how the Electoral College shapes presidential elections, and the many ways you can participate in this democratic process. With the 2024 election season in full swing, it's crucial to understand these mechanisms, from your rights as a voter to the options available, whether it's in-person, absentee, or mail-in voting. So let's get started. Voting in the United States, a fundamental right. In the United States, voting is one of the most vital ways for citizens to have their voices heard. Voting allows individuals to participate in choosing leaders who represent their values, opinions, and priorities at all levels of government, from local councils and state governors to the President of the United States. This democratic right is protected by the Constitution and further supported by state-specific rules that make voting accessible to as many eligible citizens as possible. For U.S. citizens, voting rights are tied to several fundamental principles. The 15th Amendment ensures that no citizen can be denied the right to vote based on race or color, while the 19th Amendment guarantees voting rights for women. Additionally, the Voting Rights Act of 1965 made it illegal to discriminate against voters based on race. Over the years, amendments and laws have expanded and safeguarded voting rights, aiming to create a fair and equal system for all. How to vote in the U.S. Requirements and options. When it comes to casting a ballot in the U.S., there are different requirements and options available. Generally, to vote, you must be a U.S. citizen, at least 18 years old, and meet your state's residency requirements. You must also be registered to vote, which can often be done online, by mail, or in person. Some states allow same-day registration, but others require that you register in advance. So, it's important to check your state's specific guidelines to ensure you're eligible. There are 3 main ways to vote in the United States. 1. In-person voting. This is the traditional method, where voters go to a designated polling place to cast their ballots on Election Day, or during early voting periods. Early voting allows people to vote at their convenience before Election Day, reducing wait times and increasing accessibility. 2. Absentee voting. Absentee voting enables people who are unable to vote in person to cast their ballots by mail. This option is typically available to military personnel, U.S. citizens living overseas, and those with disabilities or illnesses that prevent them from voting in person. 3. Mail-in voting. In some states, voters can request a mail-in ballot for any reason, while others automatically send ballots to all registered voters. The process for mail-in voting varies by state, but it generally involves filling out the ballot, placing it in a provided envelope, and returning it by mail or at a drop-off location. For each voting method, it's crucial to follow instructions carefully to ensure your vote counts. This includes double-checking any required identification, signing in the correct places, and mailing or delivering your ballot before the deadline. Accommodations and assistance for voters. The United States also has measures in place to support voters who need additional assistance. For example, under the Americans with Disabilities Act, ADA, polling places must be accessible to individuals with disabilities. Assistance can be provided to those who need help reading or filling out their ballot. Additionally, federal law allows non-English speaking voters to receive language assistance at polling stations in areas where it is needed. These accommodations help create a more inclusive voting experience, allowing every citizen the opportunity to participate. Voting rights advocates work tirelessly to ensure that these laws are enforced, making the voting process as accessible as possible for everyone, regardless of their physical or language barriers. The role of the Electoral College in presidential elections. Now, let's shift our focus to the Electoral College, one of the most unique and sometimes misunderstood aspects of U.S. presidential elections. The Electoral College was established by the Founding Fathers as a compromise between electing the president by a vote in Congress and by a popular vote of qualified citizens. Here's how it works. Each state is allocated a certain number of electoral votes, which is determined by the sum of its number of senators, always 2, and representatives in the House, which is based on population. This means larger states like California have more electoral votes, while smaller states like Vermont have fewer. Currently, there are 538 total electoral votes, with 270 needed to win the presidency. When Americans vote in a presidential election, they are actually voting for a slate of electors chosen by their party, who then pledge to vote for their party's candidate. The candidate who wins the majority of votes in a state usually wins all of that state's electoral votes. This is known as a winner-takes-all system, although Maine and Nebraska use a proportional approach. After Election Day, the electors meet in their respective states to cast their votes for president and vice president. These votes are then counted by Congress, and the candidate with the majority of electoral votes, at least 270, becomes the president. Has the Electoral College ever been controversial? Yes, the Electoral College has been a source of debate for many years. One of the main criticisms is that it does not always reflect the popular vote. This has happened 5 times in U.S. history, with the most recent cases being in the 2000 and 2016 elections. In these instances, the candidate who received the most popular votes nationwide did not win the presidency because they did not secure enough electoral votes. This disconnect has led some people to call for a reform or even an end to the Electoral College system. Proponents argue that the Electoral College protects smaller states and prevents a few densely populated areas from deciding the election, thus ensuring a balance of power. Opponents, however, believe that a popular vote system would be more democratic, allowing every vote to carry equal weight. Why your vote matters. Although the Electoral College ultimately decides the outcome of presidential elections, individual votes are still extremely important. Voting not only helps determine the winner of the electoral votes in your state, but also influences policies and decisions at the local and state levels. Local officials, congresspeople, and even senators play crucial roles in shaping the laws that affect daily life. Moreover, voting influences the makeup of the Electoral College indirectly by electing representatives who align with the values and interests of their communities. For young and first-time voters, engaging in this process can lead to long-term involvement in civic life and foster a sense of empowerment in shaping the future. What to expect for the 2024 election? As we approach the 2024 election, there are a few new changes and challenges to keep in mind. Many states have made adjustments to their voting procedures, including expanding or restricting access to mail-in voting. For example, some states have imposed new ID requirements, while others have made it easier to register online. It's essential to stay informed and make sure you understand your state's voting laws. Election officials, local governments, and organizations like Vote.org offer resources to help voters navigate these changes. Checking your registration status, identifying polling locations, and knowing the deadlines for absentee or mail-in voting are all steps that can make voting smoother and less stressful. Final thoughts. Voting is a powerful way to have a say in the future of the country. Whether you choose to vote in person, by mail, or absentee, each ballot represents a voice that deserves to be heard. Understanding how voting works and the impact of the Electoral College helps us appreciate the weight of our choices, not just in presidential elections, but at every level of government. This year, as millions of Americans prepare to cast their votes, take the time to educate yourself, check your registration, and make a plan for how you'll vote. By doing so, you're participating in a time-honored tradition that helps shape the direction of the nation. Thank you for tuning in to this in-depth look at voting in the U.S. and the Electoral College. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and share your thoughts in the comments. Have you made your voting plan for 2024? Let us know, and remember, every vote counts.